Tendi loves pesto. A horse stomps on Mariner even though she's a maverick. And the lower decks replicator only replicates one slice of pizza at a time. Hey, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
We are joined today by Mr. Peter Carrubba.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
And we're doing a review. My name's Ryan T. Husk, by the way. We're doing a review of Season 2, Episode 8 of Lower Decks, entitled I Excretus, I believe was how he pronounced it. I Excretus, which obviously makes us think of something. How you guys doing?
Really good. Good that you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it does make us think of something. Doing good, man. Doing good. Another Lower Decks. They keep the hits rolling.
Man,
on this show.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Like every week, I feel like they're just hitting their stride even more. They're having a lot of fun. They're giving us. There were actually a lot of Easter eggs in this one. I like when they mentioned at the beginning. They mentioned the temporal causality loop. If I remember correctly, that did remind me of the episode Cause and Effect, Next Generation's Cause and Effect. I think that's what they were referring to. And they did actually say something about Cause and Effect later, or maybe it was mentioned on that board. They had a board with all these titles and stuff. But anyway, we'll get more into that. Peter, what did you think of this episode as somebody that's watched every episode?
It kept me laughing from beginning to end, and how much information or how much show they squeeze into 20-something minutes boggles my mind, because you can't. It's like holding your breath the whole time. You can't breathe without missing a certain segment of it. So it was, and I'm a big fan of Rick and Morty, so that was very Rick and Morty-esque. Yeah.
Oh, really? What part was it? The naked holodeck part?
The naked
time was pretty dead on. I have to say that was my favorite part of the because she's seeing things that she doesn't ever want to see again.
It's like when Mariner goes, "Hey, that's an anus."
That's it.
Yeah.
It reminded me an awful lot of this past Folsom Street Fair weekend.
There was another line there. The guy says, "I can't tell where I begin."
Yeah. Boy, oh boy, lots of good stuff there. Yeah. I mean, it was actually a scene that went very, very quickly. Like it was like 5 seconds, flash. And I'm not ashamed to say, and Cirroc, I know you did not do the same, but I actually went back, rewound it, and played it at a slower speed. Not because I needed to see cartoon kissies, but because it just went so quickly that I was interested in knowing like what were the dynamics of like who was coupling. Like I actually saw Dr. Ta'ana chasing some rando guy, and she's chasing like a cat. There were two girls behind a bar kissing. I think there were also two men doing something. I just kind of want to see like what were all the diverse couplings and situations that they had and whatever. And then of course, then there's the censored part where Boimler's just up on his own stirrups or whatever. But anyway, I mean, I thought it was funny and clever, and they moved it so quickly that it actually made me want to go back and be like, because obviously they're not going to show anything, so you're safe in going back to look at it. But how many times did you look at it, Peter?
I actually watched it I'm not ashamed to say it, about 4 times. Because
I knew it.
If you turn your head away for just a second, you're missing like five scenes. And so I actually, and I did go back to that one spot all the time, which is 10 minutes, 20 seconds. Because I couldn't, it was moving so fast, as you said, I needed to see it a few more times. And I know you like to watch stuff with the closed captions at the bottom, so you can see what they're saying. I find that distracting, but I had to keep going back and recapturing a lot of it. And I just loved it more and more. And I was not paying attention because I was laughing so hard. And when I laughed, I closed my eyes and I was like, no, I need to see what that was. And I was shocked.
Yeah.
Cirroc, I'm guessing you watched it once. And that was enough.
Yeah, I watched it once. Once was good enough for me. I got the gist of what they were trying to say. I understood. For me, the thing that jumped out initially was like, oh, this is a clever idea because they're switching the roles of the officers and the lower deck. So they're making one do the other's job. And I thought that's classic, like sitcom television. That's classic, yes. Comedy where you reverse roles, right? One person, Lucy has to play the bongo and her husband, Ricky, has to, do something else. It's like they're switching the roles. And I love those kinds of episodes and in television, specifically when you're dealing with comedy. And I thought this was another good example of that. I'm like, oh, that's right off top. It's going to have, there's enough there where you're going to have enough, situational things. I thought they were going to show more of the officers doing the lower deck work.
Yeah. But
they didn't show as much as I thought they would. But once again, they're trying to cram, 2 hours worth of stuff into a 24-minute animated show. So there's a lot of stuff to cover. But I love the episode. I like the concept. And then it also, it really questions people's, the sense of assuredness that they have, right? Because Rutherford, for example, we always look at Rutherford as the guy who can solve things and knows a lot about the station. He's basically like the Miles O'Brien of the animated show. And in this episode, when he got put to the test and he's chief engineer and he's, working under the stress, he blows the whole station up. So even the thing that he's the most confident in, he still lacks certain experience in. So I like the way they kind of expanded upon those kinds of ideas.
Yeah, it's really cool. And most of those were references to previous episodes as well, which, makes those of us that have seen those episodes just even nerd out for it even more, because it's not only is it entertaining and it's fun and it's well written, but we say, like, when they got naked and it was called Naked Time, that was a reference in the original series. They had an episode called The Naked Time where they got inebriated and the whole crew was basically, getting sexual and stuff. And then like the second or third episode of The Next Generation ran into the same thing, and it was called The Naked Now. And, Picard and Beverly are hooking up and all these other things are going on. Tasha Yar and Data. And so
fully functional.
Yeah. So they referenced that, and then that's what happened. It just turned into like everybody humping and that. And so now this is now the third Star Trek series where that happened. And even the episode I, Lucretus, I think I'm pronouncing that right, was like an episode of The Next Generation, which was called I, Borg, Borg, which was another one. But anyway, Peter, did you catch a lot of these references? I'm sure you recognize a lot of the titles that were up on the board, right?
I did, especially when there was a Q moment we had, and there was just so many. Like I said, it went by so quickly. There was an awful lot of next gen references in there, and many Easter eggs. It was just a very, very rapid episode that needed to be watched at least twice.
Yeah, and so the lady that splits up into three parts, what is it called? A Pandronian. And I put the subtitles on to know how they're spelling her name, and it was SHARIYNYEM. So it's Shari Yin Yem. And she's the thing that splits into three parts, which was a reference to the animated series. The character's name was Bem, I believe, BEM. And, he pickpocketed Kirk and whatever he did, because he was like, he would split into 3 pieces. So it was cool to see that alien come back. Boy, I got a lot of notes on this. It's crazy. They put so much stuff in there. Like, I thought at first the episode was going to be about the lower deckers being left on that satellite, but that was just like a one thing gag. It just like one scene and they move on. Whereas I thought it was going to be like a whole episode of them being stuck there or climbing through or whatever. By the way, they were wearing what seemed to be the first contact space uniforms that Worf and Picard and Lieutenant Hawk were wearing in the movie First Contact when they were on the belly of the Enterprise.
Yeah,
I believe that's what they were wearing.
Well, there was also a good reference to when Worf was paralyzed.
Yes.
And she had to take the knife, and he was insisting, "Kill me now." And that was also another good episode, which I did enjoy in Next Gen. But they threw that reference in, and she failed because she let him live.
And what was it? He said something like, time of life, 0900 hours. That was very funny. That's solid writing.
That was solid writing. I actually laughed out loud on that one because I thought he was dead, and then he's looking around. he's like, time of life. I'm like, wow, that's a funny little twist on that. I'm sure that the Terran Empire was also a reference to something. I just waiting for you guys to tell me
the mirror
which
universe.
Particular reference.
Right. You got it. That it was in the Mirror Universe, which we've seen in Discovery. We've seen a little bit more of it in Deep Space Nine. Also, it happens in Enterprise. We see the Terran Empire, and so she was in the Mirror Universe for a minute there.
Now, Ryan, did you notice this was an off reference, which I caught right away when Boimler noticed that Beckett was saluting him with the wrong hand, and he pointed at her and did that squeal? That was from Donald Sutherland in Invasion of the Body Snatchers when he discovered that.
Wow, deep cut there.
That popped right, and that was what that reference was when he points at her and lets out a squeal. Because that's exactly what Donald Sutherland did in the 1978 Invasion of the Body Snatchers here in San Francisco.
Nice. Very nice. I did not catch that one bit. Did you, Cirroc?
Not at all. And it boggles my mind when I think about how their writing room session goes for one of these episodes. Like, I think it's easier to write for any other show because you basically have a blank slate in front of you. So Voyager, DS9, Next Generation. I think it was easier to write for those shows than it is to write for this show because, so what are they saying? Okay, let's bring back the Pandronian from the animated series. Check. Let's, the Naked Time episode and the Naked Now episode. Let's recall that. Check. Let's, the amount of research to me, it's kind of reverse engineering when you watch these episodes. So I guess they gather up all the things that they're trying to bring back. Like, hey, we're going to bring this alien back. We're going to bring this theme from this show. We're going to bring back this scene, this title of this thing that everybody remembers the title or this particular thing. So they must have a list of things that they're trying to cover. Yeah. And then work backwards from that and say, okay, so now how does this all tie in together? The Pandronian is a drill instructor. Yes, check. Doing a diagnostic on the crew to make sure everybody knows their role. Like, to me, it's advanced level writing to have to be able to check off all these boxes from the animated show, from the original series, from all the other series, and still tell a new story too. So you're trying to tell a new story and also tell all the old stories over again in a funny kind of referencey way. So
right.
Hats off to the writers of this animated series that I think are putting in as much or more work than any other group of writers trying to figure out what to do next.
I agree. And when you were saying that, it also reminds me, bear with me here, it reminds me of Disney in that apparently Disney has kind of like a mantra, which is like more detail. give me more detail, give me more things. When they're making a movie or when they're designing a ride at Disneyland or Disney World, they're like, how can it have more detail? How can we add more little things in the background that people would recognize, or more little things on the ride? And so it seems like you're saying, Cirroc, at the beginning, they start up with all these references that they want to put in. Then they write the script. And then when they're done, it almost feels like they say, all right, what else can we put in here? You know what I mean? Like there's a line here that doesn't have a reference. How can we give it, a little thing in there? Like Peter, you said the squeal that he gives. Maybe that was a late ad. Maybe they're just like, hey, what would be cool is if instead of him going, whoa, he could do that screech like in that movie or something like that, So it almost feels like they just try to jam pack everything. And they're like, okay, it's kind of like when you're packing for vacation and you're like, I can get one more thing in this bag. And then don't worry, I know how much I can fit in this bag. I can still zip it.
Yeah.
Well, the degree of familiarity that they have to have with all of the series means that a lot of these writers probably grew up with all of these series and watching them. I mean, how can you not? I mean, they can't possibly go back and watch the myriad of Star Trek, ensembles that we've had, and then pick that out. It's probably a bunch of these writers that are like, oh, I remember a funny part or an interesting part in this episode in this series, and then they go back and they probably rewrite or rewatch it and write something into that. And I bet a lot of them are a lot of Gen Xers and boomers. So they're, look at what Seth MacFarlane does with Family Guy.
Right. Well, speaking of boomer, there was also in The Good of the Many, I believe that was a reference to the Wrath of Khan, right? When Spock dies, because he had to go into that warp core, and then that's how Rutherford fails. Cirroc, in that moment where he fails, that was something that Spock did to sacrifice himself. Also, there was the Old West planet, which was, like done a couple times in Next Generation on holodeck stuff.
It's full of datas.
Yeah, with little baby Alexander and Troy. Cirroc, did you have any laugh out loud moments? Were there moments that were funnier than other episodes, or was it just kind of a standard good fun?
Yeah, there were a few moments. One was when I actually had to rewind it. She said this Pandronian instructor said, "None of you are the best. You're on a California class ship." And I laughed at that because, living in California, you're like, I guess we're not the best out here. We certainly we think of ourselves as the best, but apparently we don't make it as the gold standard in the future. No. So the California class
ship, yeah,
exactly. So that was a funny thing that I laughed out loud. There was another moment where Boimler was like, when he was getting assimilated, he was like, I've got acid reflux, and
I'm a net negative.
I'm a net negative. I might be bad to assimilate. You don't want all this gas and these bunions, like that was funny to me, as a little laugh out loud moment.
And by the way, at that moment, that Borg Queen was the same lady that voiced the Borg Queen in First Contact as well. You could recognize her voice, and it was verified later in the credits. And she did blow on Boimler, like she blew on Data in First Contact. There were a lot of First Contact references in this episode, right? I mean, like the space suits, the Borg Queen and all the Borg stuff, and blowing on his neck, and there were a lot of First Contact stuff, which is great because I think personally that's my favorite of the Star Trek movies. I know a lot of people say Wrath of Khan, but anyway, sorry. What else you got for us, Cirroc? Any other laugh out loud moments?
Yeah, one other one was when the instructor, again, she says to Mariner, she's like, So you're telling me that's why I couldn't ride the horse? It's like, no, the horse thing, I didn't have time for that. That was
That's
all
on
you.
That's all you.
It's like, shut up, horses love me.
Yeah, I'm a maverick. I was laughing at that. So those were the jokes that kind of stood out to me.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Pete? Any super hilarious moments outside of your favorite scene that you're going to play again when this is done?
And no, I like when Mariner self-spaces herself when she wants to escape out of that situation, and she's screaming as she's being blown into space. Fail me now. I want to go back to the Western.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of like when you walk into a club situation, you don't want to be there. You nope it right out of there. So that kind of got me. And
nope
also,
it. You do what?
You nope yourself right out, like nope. And
I got you. Nope.
But another one that I like is I didn't like the cat person. What's her name?
Ta'ana.
Ta'ana. But I have learned or have started to enjoy that character a lot more because one, I love the foul mouth on her.
Yeah.
Two, the fact that she goes from cat to person kind of thing almost at the drop of a dime, and she cuddled up to on the bed on his ass, and then she falls off and she says, "What the?" as she hits the ground, figuring that as a cat she didn't land on her legs at that moment.
Oh yeah, good point.
So yeah, I do enjoy that character considerably much more now.
Yeah, you are kind of her, aren't you?
Yeah, I like the blurted out obscenities. I kind of relate to that. So
now another reference I noticed, obviously because it was fairly heavy-handed, was when at the very end when Boimler says, "I'm Excretus of Borg," which reminds us of Locutus of Borg when Picard was assimilated in Best of Both Worlds, which was like that big giant moment. There was also the crystalline entities, where some people call them crystalline entities and other people call them crystalline entities. But that was mentioned quite a few times. That's another reference. Boy, it can just keep going on and on. What do you think? What do you guys think of the test itself? Like Boimler going back and forth, 79%, 83%, 84%. And then what he finished with 98, he went 94, 98, then he eventually got 100, but they killed the test, right?
Yeah, they had to keep him in the simulation so that they can continue the rest of the testing. So he ended up getting a really crappy score. But that was another funny thing, is the things that he had to do to improve the test score, like,
were ridiculous.
First he just escaped. Then he escapes with the two babies, and then he has then he has to, a bunch of people with him, and then he has to blow up the Borg ship, and like it just keeps getting more and more things that he ends up having to do. And I thought that was kind of a funny scene with him.
Yeah, there was a great line there where Boimler says, I beat the Borg queen at chess and taught her more empathy, or whatever. Like who's expected to really do that? Like just to get a 98?
Yeah, exactly. one percentage point every time he went back. So he wasn't no matter what he did, it only went up 1 percentage point. And so he went from like 79 to, so he had to do it an awful lot of times. And then at the end, he actually captured all the Borg, was taking them out with him, had all the babies attached to him. and you're like, yeah, so much work for so little reward.
The juice ain't worth the squeeze. They also mentioned another mention was the Genesis planet, if I remember correctly. Did they mention it or just allude to it? I don't recall. I think they mentioned it. I think they actually said the Genesis planet, which I believe was when they rescued Spock from the Genesis planet, was Star Trek 3. Peter, you should know this. You watch those old Star Trek movies, don't you?
Oh yeah, because I'm so damn old.
I know that you're more of an original series fan than Cirroc or myself, right?
Well, no, this is true. I'm surprised I didn't catch that reference.
It was
Yeah,
in
I mean, I caught a
it
lot
was
of
the
the Wrath of
Rutherford
Khan
scene, yeah.
stuff, but no, I guess that one flew right over my head as many times as I watched it. So I must have been laughing during that.
We're gonna find a lot of things that we missed because that's what happens in the days after the episode. People come up with all these extra things that come up, and you know, these little tiny references that of course we'd miss. God, sometimes they're like over 50 references in one episode. Like when she said, "Hey, that's an anus." That's a reference to when Picard. No, I'm just kidding.
No. Wait, that has a reference to it.
Encountered a rogue anus.
Guys, if lobster mac and cheese had any reference or anything, but it seemed to have, you know, they played on it a little bit.
I didn't catch anything. It just reminded me of a Deep Space Nine episode called Blaze of Glory. If you remember that one, Cirroc.
I think back on that.
And when you and Nog were eating those pasta shells made out of with tube grub sauce from Captain Sisko.
And you know what? Actually, yeah, I can remember that. I actually like the. It was kind of weird, but you know, at the end when they realized that the replicators weren't, you know, giving the right food for the lower deck people, I kind of like that the officers took that step. I know it's animated, but it showed the fact that they cared, right? And that they actually learned a lesson from the experience. They're like, hey, wait a minute. The one lesson we did learn is these guys are eating really crappy food. They don't have the options to eat as good as we do. The other thing we learned is that their bunk beds are not as, you know, comfortable to sleep on. It would have been nice to have tried to fix that problem too, but I guess they'll work on that later. And that was funny too. That was another laugh out loud moment, was when Shax was like, I got to stretch. And he was on the bridge. And he's like, I just got to stretch. Had a bad sleep. It's naked time. So I like that as well. On the board, you know, that was showing like what the missions were. There were a few other things. You know, like obviously one was called Borg Encounter. One was called Tribble Troubles, which is a reference to the Trouble with Tribbles original series episode. There was Kobayashi Maru. There was Q to Q. Oh, it also said on the board, I think it actually said Cause and Effect, which was the episode with the time loop, and Chain of Command, which is one I talk about incessantly. But here was something fun. When, I think it was, it was when the upper deckers, or whatever they might be called, upper decker is something different for college kids. But when they saw that the Borg were attacking and the Jem'Hadar were attacking, the commander was wearing like a Robin Hood outfit. And he's like, Q's here, it's a problem. And we, you know, that's a reference to the Next Generation episode Q Who, if I remember correctly. I think that's the one where Q turns them all into Robin Hood and his merry men, which is just ridiculous. And Worf says his line, I must protest. I am not a merry man, you know, that everybody loves. But
after he destroys Geordi's
mandolin, brilliant.
I like the fact that I didn't know that they slept in a corridor.
Yeah.
That they're so low grade that they have to sleep in a hallway.
And there was another line. He says, if they wanted us to stack these boxes like that, why'd they design them in this shape?
That's so good.
That one too.
Yeah.
Because we've all kind of been there before, where, you know, but if you're like upper management, lower people, if you're the lower person, you're always like, if they wanted us to do this, why'd they make it so shitty? Why'd they do this?
Yeah, that was funny. And also, no, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go you ahead, Cirroc.
No, I was just going to say also the way that the officers in the simulation were talking to the real officers when the crisis was going down. They're like, "We're being attacked," and they're like, "What can we do to help?" They're like, "Just stack those boxes," and basically
Yes.
do something that's completely
useless.
has no
Innocuous
consequence. Yeah, doesn't matter. Like, make sure you get the straws in the cup holder. Like, seriously, this whole thing's about to collapse. We're about to die. And you're worried about the most useless, meaningless thing at this moment. Another kind of funny little joke to me. I thought these guys have an understanding of Star Trek that's so deep and so, so well versed that they're able to just make fun of themselves as they're continuing to make a new storyline. It's just like it's kind of brilliant, actually. And I really got to give a credit to these guys for continuing to nail it. I don't think I've seen an episode yet where I'm thinking, oh man, this is terrible. This show's about to get canceled. This is not good.
Oh, no, it's not.
When I see this show, and I actually say this show can last the longest out of all the Star Trek shows. Like this show can go on for 10 seasons and I wouldn't really notice, that it's been going on that long. It wouldn't be like, oh man, enough of that show. So they've got to hit.
That's the magic of animation. I mean, you can drag it on forever. I mean, look at The Simpsons of over almost 35 years and South Park of over 20 and Family Guy is going on over 20. And as long as the characters that still can do the voices can still do the voices, they don't age. That show's going to be around for a while, hopefully. But the fact that they only do it in like 10 episode increments kind of leaves the novelty to it, but it's also a little, annoying.
Yeah, but it's true. It can go on forever. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I wish there were more episodes, but I guess they're looking at longevity. And our buddy Rico Anderson sent in a message today just saying, dude, they've got a golden opportunity. They need to figure out a way to include Captain Kirk in one of these episodes and get William Shatner to do the voiceover. Dude is 90 years old. He can still do it. Jump on it. And that's a really good point. That would be cool to get the Captain Kirk to do Captain Kirk. And that's another great thing about animation is that they can bring any character back and, time doesn't matter. It could be 50 years after, the actor could be 50 years older than they were when they portrayed the character. But as long as they can still do the voice, then they're golden. And it would be great. It would be amazing if they went 10 seasons. I wonder if
they can do a holodeck. So, and that's what they can do. Just throw them in the holodeck. And just like when LaForge had all that going on, trying to fix the ships, the Enterprise. So you're right. As long as he can do the voice, it doesn't matter. They can put it back in TOS, and you would think that would work just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just think that, with guys who are at Shatner status, there's no appeal for him to come and do a one-off guest star on this animated show.
Unless it's big bucks.
Unless it's big bucks, but other than that, if it's not big bucks, I don't see the appeal for it. He's like, I've already done movies, I've already done the show. Doing a guest star on this show to help the show out doesn't do me anything. So it's going to be difficult to get them to come on and participate. Some of these bigger people like Shatner and these other captains. Now you offer him his own show and it's a different story. Then he's, you're talking series regular money and a different contract and a different type of conversation. But as a one-off, I don't think we're going to see anybody like Shatner donating their time to do a one-off for the animated show.
Sounds like you think he's some kind of big-time guy by now or something.
Yeah, he is a big-time guy, but I could see them using the clip of something he's already done in one of the original episodes, maybe a speech that he gave or some kind of clips of him, and recycling that clip into the animated show, because that wouldn't require him to do anything. They just have to cut, paste, and edit, and they could use his voice, and that would just make, that's just him signing off and saying you have permission to use that, clip already. So that to me is more likely, if they can find something that Kirk said in the past in the movies or anywhere, and find a way to sample that for Lower Decks. That's possible.
It'd be really cool along those lines is they do a lot of references to the animated series on this show, surprisingly so. It would be cool if they had some kind of clip or some kind of image of Kirk as designed in the animated series with the yellow eyes and everything, like the actual, rather than the Lower Decks style of animation, showing him in the animated series style of animation would be funny. Peter, do you ever watch the animated series?
I probably did. I watched it as a kid, and I haven't watched him. I can't say. Oh, geez. I'm gonna be honest. Maybe 40 years, more. I'm not opposed to seeing them again. I'm sure I can find them somewhere on some
Paramount Plus,
streaming
probably.
App. Yeah. Well, yeah.
That's my guess.
Yeah. Patrick Stewart does Family Guy and American Dad. You'd think that he would pop in, and they animate him really well, and his personality contributes really nicely to the show. So I'm sure you can get, hopefully Patrick Stewart will volunteer to, or at least, make himself available.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, I wanted to expand on the idea that you had, Ryan, and I think that might be something we see down the pipeline one of these days. This new animated show getting caught in some vortex, time continuum, whatever, where they get stuck on the old animated show.
Brilliant. That's hilarious.
A mashup.
And it does seem like something they would put on the table as a possibility. Yeah.
Yeah, a mashup. Something to like the effects of how they did Trials and Tribulations, and they had DS9 kind of, they spliced it together with the original series with the Troubles and Tribbles. So something to that effect where you're blending in the new and the old. I think that could definitely work, whether it's bringing the Kirk back from the original series and having him in the new show, or having the cast of the new Lower Deck show kind of transported onto the original series and finding their way back home type shit from that. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, I'm looking right here real quick, and it would be so cool to just see them in this kind of style. Either the Lower Deckers stay in their style and these guys have their style, or they get trapped in that world and their style of animation goes into that world. That'd be really cool.
Yes, one or the other. Exactly. That's pretty much, I believe, is going to happen one of these days. I just don't know how. And
you heard it here first.
Maybe we can get writers' credits on the show. If you're watching, guys.
Yeah.
I know you're watching.
That very Hanna-Barbera kind of meets Rick and Morty kind of looking animation thing.
Yes. Oh, that'd be fun. I'd love that. Well, we have a few minutes left. Do we have any final thoughts on this episode? I think personally, I could keep going on forever about little references and funny little moments, like when they did go into the mirror universe right here. And you see people like walking by, some random people walking by, and or something like that. And one guy's just like, I feel like I want to torture somebody. Oh, I'm feeling really horny. Well, I feel horny when I torture people. I torture people when I get horny, or something like that. It's like that. It's just so funny. That's a knock on the mirror universe, how it's just two things. They like to torture and they like to hump. Those are their two, and maybe combine them,
Yeah, I heard that banter in the background and I was like, that's funny. That's funny.
Any
Oh, she
final
attacked
thoughts,
Jack.
Peter?
I just liked at the end where they were trying to scare the hell out of the what was that thing called again that changed that splits into three?
Yeah, the Pandronian.
Yeah, that's it. And how rapid all of this happened. First the crystalline entity, then the wormhole or the black hole, and they're like, no, that's just a standard black hole.
You would have known that. That was just like
right.
right.
So I like how they wrapped it up. It just went really fast and then got right to a point. So yeah, that whole episode was very entertaining.
Yeah, and the other thing I would notice too is I would say that this may have been one of the first episodes where we actually saw the entire crew working together to solve a problem, right? So everybody was on board at some point. So it was, Boimler, you keep them distracted and you stay in the simulation, while Beckett with Mariner and her mom are both working together now for the first time in a long time that we've seen, trying to outsmart the drill instructor lady. So I felt like there was, even though they had them all separately going into their own little pods and trying to holosuites and trying to recreate whatever their experience was, towards the end, it became a teamwork issue. And I thought that was the most teamwork we'd actually had seen out of the Lower Decks crew. They're like, oh, okay, they're dysfunctional, but they can be functional when they want to be, right? Even when they were in the black hole, I'm like, dude, they're about to tear their ship up and get caught in the black hole. And then she's like, all right, let's get out of it. And they just literally just like swoop up and they're out of the black hole. I'm like, oh, wasn't that life or death? It was pretty easy.
They got out of it in under 12 parsecs.
Right. So just the fact that they were working together, I like the camaraderie. I like the fact that we finally get to see a little bit of Mariner and her mom kind of working things out and on the same page and on the same team for once. I like the fact that you got the, like I said, the officers kind of empathizing with the lower deck people and saying, oh, you guys kind of have it rough and we need to make some accommodations to help you all out, give you better replimats and maybe work on these bunk beds or something. So I just feel like the entire crew is merging more, and the chemistry between them all is increasing because they're understanding their roles better, right? In the beginning, we started off with like, we don't know who is playing what role. Is Mariner the captain? Is she the leader? Now we're starting to see, okay, these are the roles that they're all playing and they're settling into them really well. I like that.
There are a couple final things too I wanted to touch on that made me laugh was Miglimo, the bird counselor guy. And when Mariner saw him in the mirror universe, and she just said, oh, what's up, Miglimo? And he was tied up or in chains, shackled kind of the way that Garrick was in the mirror universe in Deep Space Nine when Worf was holding him. And he just screeches. And I don't know why that made me laugh. He didn't say, oh, hello, or whatever he usually does. He just went, ah, and that was funny because it was totally unexpected. And also when Boimler was plotting to either, get pushed up beyond the captain or to kill the captain to take over, because that's how they do in the mirror universe. He was saying, oh, and then I could go to a more sinister ship, like he's more excited about just getting to a more sinister ship. It was just a real caricature of the mirror universe, that they did. And it was very funny. I enjoyed that. I think that that's smart to just kind of poke fun at it, because every time they do the mirror universe, they take it very, very seriously. And what Lower Decks does is it grabs those things that all the other series took seriously and it laughs at it and says, the mirror universe where they're always humping and torturing and, whatever, and it's fun. I don't know, that it's just a nice way. It's refreshing. It's a refreshing way to look at the things that we've watched so seriously in the past or taken so seriously.
Yeah, Mariner even says at one point, she's like, I have to get my mirror universe voice down. Like,
yes.
Basically like acknowledging that characters alter their voice slightly in the mirror universe, right? So I thought that was kind of funny too. So yeah, they're really self-deprecation is the best way for me to do comedy, right?
Yes.
You have a fat comedian on stage. We're all thinking that you're a fat guy, but not. It's just what it is. It's what we see. And when you come out and you kind of address it early with the self-deprecation, and you're like, hey, look, I'm just a fat guy who does jokes. Then the elephant in the room is out of the way, and there's a certain level of comfort that you're like, okay, we know what the deal is, right? We don't have to act like we're not seeing this. And then once you get past that, then you get to see who the person is. You get to really enjoy the ride. You get to listen to the jokes. And so what they're doing on this show is the same kind of self-deprecation. They're making fun of Star Trek on Star Trek.
Yeah.
Which is like, that's how you got to do it if you're going to do a comedy,
That's a good point. That's a lot of comedians kind of like their secret sauce is, if I make fun of myself first, then you'll be okay when I make fun of you, so because like if somebody just comes out and starts talking shit to everybody, they're not going to take it well. But if they're like, hey, I make fun of myself first and I say I'm a dummy or I'm weird or I do stupid things, then we as an audience take it much better when he or she eventually turns it on to us and we're like, do me next, make fun of me now.
I'm short too. Short too over here.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to approach comedy. You just have to be able to laugh at yourself, and once you're able to laugh at yourself, then you actually have become protected against jokes, which is it works the opposite way, right? If you're real protective about who you are and you're fragile about your identity, then somebody can really break you down easily. Hey, look at you, you're a slob, you're short, you're this, you're that, right? And you can be vulnerable and broken down. But if you own those things and say, yeah, I'm the short fat guy over here, right? Then they can't use that. They can't attack you with that anymore. It becomes something of an armor as opposed to a vulnerability. You're like, so what? You're owning it. That's what I am. So what? Now let's go on you. And then now you've switched the tables and you've reversed the roles in that kind of a way. So the best thing to do is to just own who you are. If you're going to be a comedian, make fun of who you are. That's the best jokes. The best jokes are people saying, I come from this background. My mom is this. And how Indian people are, how black moms are.
That's funny. I was actually thinking about Russell Peters when you said that. And then you said Indian, which is the first thing Russell Peters says when he comes out is he makes fun of his people. Yeah, that's a good time.
Right. Yeah. So that's the way to do it. So I think they're on track right now. And it's this show. I don't know if this show, I think this will be the longest running Star Trek show as far as
bold
seasons are concerned.
That'd be awesome. Guess. What do you think, Peter? You agree?
I agree. And I think I would like to see it being available to the masses more instead of having to pay for a separate streaming thing.
Ain't gonna happen.
I know.
Everything's a stream nowadays.
I totally get it. I
think it will be, Peter, but more after the reruns and after it's run its course, it will make it to YouTube or whatever the else platforms there are. But and then the more people will be able to enjoy it. But for right now, they're going to make sure that it's exclusive, I believe.
Yeah, and I mean, we get it, we watch it, and but I'm sure you'll get a lot more opinion and a lot more thought process in it with people. More people could actually watch it and enjoy it.
Right.
Again, like I said, it's along the lines of Rick and Morty. It's made by pretty much the same people, and it's got a lot of that dark, dirty, underground humor that, and they also like to make fun of the sillier episodes of Star Trek and bring it to light. I mean, which I thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah.
I know we got to go, but final question just made me think of something. Final question. Do you guys think this is the farthest they've gone with to get humor, that orgy scene? Do you think it's the farthest they've gone? Do you think that the horn rub was farther? Do you think that they will go potentially even farther in future episodes?
I think they will, because they dropped the F-bomb in Discovery a couple times. And you're paying for this. It's not subject to any of the FCC,
True.
Regulations. Censor. So, and look at Rick and Morty. It's on Adult Swim, and they drop a lot. They do a lot of messed up stuff on that show. So I think that it's an animation. You can't take that seriously, so it's just going to come out funny. So I think they can take it as far as they want to take it.
Yeah, I just think that they're better off just touching on it little bit by little and not doing it too much or overdoing it, because I think it can become a little raunchy if you just make it like a pornographic type of show, and you'll kind of stray away from what its original mission is. So I think they can touch on it like they have been doing, little scenes here and there, little 5-10 second scenes, not revealing too much. But I mean, if you start doing animated genitals and stuff like that, I don't see the value in that. You know what I mean?
Well, the funny thing is that it's blanked out. That's the funny thing. So it leaves you to think, oh, I gotta use my imagination now. I mean, you got the whole boiler bottom shaming thing when he's up, spread eagle to the world.
I saw it. And I think that's about as far as we need to go with that. I don't know how much farther do you want to go with that. They did the shower scene, the sonic shower scene, a couple episodes back, where I thought that was kind of pushing the boundaries. Having they had the black guy walk into the shower, and I was like, I've seen this movie before. So I mean, you play on things, you touch on it a little bit, but I don't think they need to go too raunchy, because that's not why I watch the show. I don't watch the show to see if somebody's going to drop an F-bomb. I don't watch the show to see nudity, right? Or animated nudity. I actually watch the show to see what the characters are going to do and the stories and the mischievous activities they're going to get into. And if there happens to be, adult humor in there, slide it in really cool, but don't slide it into the point where you marginalize people and you lose a large part of your audience. I think you want to keep the bulk of your audience and not be inappropriate or come across as insensitive to family time. Right.
So it sounds like, what I'm hearing is, you can play with it a little bit, you can touch on it a little bit, you can slide it in a little bit, but that's it. This is straight from Cirroc.
Well, was that like this? You could have slid it into the.
All right, everybody, we better go.
That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's about it for us. Peter, thanks so much for joining in the fun. Boy, you picked a good episode to jump in on. This one's right up your alley. And good times.
For Boiler's alley.
Yep. For Cirroc, Lofton, and myself, and Aaron Eisenberg and Russ Haslage, everybody, thank you very much for joining us. Please be sure to give this video a like or 5 stars on any kind of audio podcast. Leave us a comment below. Tell us what you thought of Peter. Tell us what you think of the raunch.
Right.
Tell us if you think they're going to go even farther, or if they go too far, or just right. You want them to just keep sliding it in, then you let us know in the comments. And thank you all very much. Always remember the 7th rule.